Hello, welcome to our 9th video lesson. Today we are going to talk about speaking and how to teach it or train it. I will tell you a bit about types of speaking, then we will look at some sub-skills of speaking, and I will explain the basics of small talk. After that, we will talk about conversation classes a bit and about speaking activities, about signs of a good speaking activity, and what obstacles are there to speaking activities. Finally, we will go through some activities focused on fluency and accuracy respectively. First, let's look at the types and sub-skills of speaking. Generally, speaking can have a different level of formality. It can be informal, neutral, or formal. Each category has its own appropriate set of grammar, structure, and vocabulary. Also, we differ between speaking that only has one participant or more of them. A speaking that has more participants is called interaction or a dialogue. And in situation when only one person is speaking, we call it production or monologue. Finally, we can also categorize speaking by its purpose. There is social interaction, which is like small talk. And then there is transactional speaking, in which we are trying to actually achieve something, get something. That basically means that transactional speaking has some specific communicative function besides being polite. Besides the general sub-skills like using proper grammar, vocabulary and pronunciation, there are also other sub-skills to speaking. For one, a speaker should be able to give his sentences different communicative functions. Also important is turn-taking. Turn-taking is the ability to make a dialogue and make it even so that no speaker talks more than the others. And, of course, fluency is also important. That means we should be able to talk a lot without pauses or breakdowns. Let's look at small talk for a bit. Small talk is a form of social interaction. Sometimes it is also called polite conversation. When you hear, for example, about British people always talking about weather, that's small talk. Usually, small talk happens when we meet people who we do not know very well and we want to keep the conversation flowing, simply so there wouldn't be the awkward silence. There are certain topics that are appropriate for small talk, and also there are topics you should not use in small talk because they are too personal. For example, good small talk topics include, besides weather, also how somebody is doing, arts, entertainment, sports, news, family, work, travel, celebrity news, hobbies, or hometown. On the other hand, topics that should not be used in small talk because they are too personal are, for example, money, politics, religion, death, health, sex, age, appearance, or past relationships. There are some expressions that are very typical for small talk. For example, how is your wife or your friend? Nice weather, isn't it? What's new? I haven't seen you in ages. What have you been up to? How are you doing? Are you still working for the same firm? Have you heard from Jenny recently? Oh, what a coincidence. Fancy meeting you here. Horrible, isn't it? In small talk, it's also very important to be able to take turns. This is often done through so-called back-channeling, which basically means that after answering, we return the conversation to the first speaker. Usually the class that's most focused on speaking is the conversation class. The goal of conversation class are students who speak fluently and with confidence. Usually the interaction happens between students and other students or between students and their teacher. And the idea is to be able and to have an opportunity to use language in almost real-life situations, simply to talk with each other. Usually, the main or only restriction to produce language in conversation class is the topic that's usually given. Let's move on to the speaking activities. In a good speaking activity, students speak a lot. That's the first and most important rule. And teacher doesn't talk so much. We call this the teacher talking time, or TTT. Also, in a good conversation activity, everyone should talk more or less the same amount of time. Motivation is usually high. Accuracy or correctness is not the most important thing in here, but you still cannot let grammar go completely. On the other hand, the most common obstacles to speaking activities are, for example, inhibition, which means being afraid or ashamed to speak in front of others; unbalanced participation, when one student speaks too much and the rest do not speak at all; and overuse of language one, when students don't speak in the foreign language, but instead use their mother tongue, for example, when you speak Spanish in class instead of English. Speaking activities are usually focused either on accuracy, the correct form, or fluency, the ability to communicate easily, receive and pass information. Accuracy-focused activities are good for trying out new grammar for the first time or for easy practice. They include activities like repetitions, picture descriptions, questionnaire filling, or rehearsed speaking like drama. In accuracy activities, the teacher can usually predict the outcome he's going to get. On the other hand, in activities oriented at fluency, the outcome, the speaking, is only partially controlled or not at all. It is also not rehearsed in advance, so it's kind of free production. Usually, therefore, students need a bit of thinking or brainstorming time before doing a fluency-focused activity. The activities themselves are then a bit more meaningful and more real-life than accuracy activities, and they don't usually include error corrections. Examples of fluency-oriented activities include, for example, group planning or problem-solving tasks, like you did with the yellow cars, pyramid discussions or group discussions, or projects. That's it for today. Please don't forget to do the quiz. The link is in the description of this video on our campus, and see you in class.